Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages, on the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. Our website is nessp.info. Check that out. Shows, guests, bios, info, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Kirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. And the countdown is here for draft day. Don't you feel excited, Mac? Don't you feel a little different, that air of excitement?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get to our big show tomorrow night. We'll be having ex-NFL former football players, one a Super Bowl champion, the other a wide receiver, and we got a few journalists lined up, and all our shows that we have on Northeast Streaming Sports and the teams they follow and represent. Good morning to you, David. Good to have you on. And Keith, good to see you. Keith, you're killing me, man. Anyway, we have two guests already checking with us, which I'm glad they did. Jack, every Wednesday we do our Major League Baseball update, and we'll get to that in a second. Today, folks, on the show, we have the Philly sports guy who's going to be live from the draft on the draft show tomorrow night. He's already down in Cleveland, Jack, setting up, getting ready for the draft. So we'll have him on in a little bit. And also the great Lance Meadow, sports broadcaster and commentator who's been on Westwood One, the WFAN, ESPN. He does the Giants, the Big Blue Kickoff. I mean, he's all over the place.
Mac, do you suppose when he goes on those shows and they want to introduce Lance Meadow, do they say, and he's been on the Mac and Jack Sports Show? Is that the intro they give him when he goes on those shows?
Of course he uses us, Jack. You know, I mean, who wouldn't use our show as an intro to any of their shows? So, another good morning to Tom over there. Tom Kelly is tuning in too. Yeah, Jamie is the best. You are correct, Tom. I enjoy having him on. Me and him are pretty good friends. So, anyways, Jack, let's do something that we always do every Monday. We got the MLB update, and then we got our Wall of Fame, which is pretty exciting too, which I can't wait to get to. But first, let's do what we always do every Monday, Jack. So, Jack, in the MLB standings, in American League East, the Boston Red Sox are 15-9 in first place. The Toronto Blue Jays and the Tampa Rays are tied for second at 500. And the Yanks and Orioles are tied for last at 10-13. In the Central, Kansas City right now is in first place at 14-8, followed by the White Sox at 12-10, Cleveland in third, followed by Detroit and Minnesota in last place. The A's right now are in first in the West at 15-9, followed by the Mariners. Houston is at 12-11, followed by the Angels in Texas. In the National League East, the Mets are up first at 9-9. Atlanta is 6-4 in their last 10 games, tied with the Phillies at 11-12, followed by Florida and the Nationals. In the Central, Milwaukee at 14-9. Pittsburgh is 7-3 in their last 10 games, tied with St. Louis at 12-11. The Reds are at 11-12, and the Cubs in last at 10-13. The division is pretty tight. In the National League West, the surprising San Francisco Giants, 7-3 in the last 10, are tied with the Dodgers at 15-9. Arizona and San Diego are tied at one game over 500. And Colorado is in last, Jack.
Matt, you're trying to get in too much information to the point where you say every Monday what we do. It's Wednesday, Mac. Our Wednesday is other people's Monday because we run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're off Monday and Tuesday like the other big boys. They're off Saturday and Sunday. They do their talk show Monday to Friday. We go Wednesday to Sunday. You had me thinking what day of the week it was, Mac. You had me dizzy. But all those stats, Mac, you're getting me dizzy. Listen, when you say one team's in first, one team's in last, some of the time it's as little as a couple of games. It's inconsequential percentage points. You want to notice what teams are playing well with Charlotte. The Dodgers are slumping, Mac. A week ago, you said they were locked to win the World Series. Now they have a hard time winning a game. They're still in first technically, but they have a small lead. The Giants have been a pleasant surprise, playing really, really well. Even though there was one play yesterday in the game where the center fielder, Dubon, it was funny if it wasn't funny. He's rounding third base trying to score, and he bangs into his third base coach. And at first I thought it was the third base's coach's fault, but then you watch the replay, and Dubon ran way off the baseline. You know, his coach did nothing wrong there. But certain teams are overachieving a bit. The Red Sox, who you like to talk about, who you feel maybe aren't overachieving, maybe are going to be that good. And you might have a point because they are going to get Chris Sale back. And when they get Chris Sale back, that's a big one. He's an elite pitcher. So we'll see whether the Red Sox can maintain it. But you have a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nothing was expected of them. They started slow. They're winning. They're in contention. The Arizona Diamondbacks have been winning lately. I mean, so teams they didn't expect much of are doing well. And how do you like Madison Bumgarner a couple of days ago? Seven innings pitched. No-hit ball, but it doesn't count as a no-hitter. That should be something for a debate show, Mac. Should no-hitters only be counted for 9 innings?
Yeah, that's the rule.
If a guy pitches 7 hitless innings, should he be given credit for no-hitter? You know, there's so many variables. If a guy pitches 10 innings and no-hit ball and gives up a hit in the 11th, should he be given credit for no-hitter? There's so many intangibles. We should debate that, you know, another time.
There's really no debate in that.
You want to debate it now? It's not even worthy of a debate in your match.
There's not even a debate there. You have to pitch the complete game, Jack. Whatever the complete game is. I mean, that's the rule. I mean,
a shortened 5-inning game. Is that a no-hitter?
If that's the complete game, Jack, that's the rule. It's always been the rule.
Years ago, Andy Hawkins pitched a no-hitter for 8 innings. The Yankees lost 1-0. He didn't give up a hit in the 8 innings. At first, he was given credit for no-hitter, but then the no-hitter was taken away from him. And should that be no-hitter if you lose the game? You're the visiting team, and you lose 1-0 for whatever they score their run without you giving up a hit. Should that be considered a no-hitter? Harvey Haddix of the Pittsburgh Pirates, decades ago, pitched 12 innings of perfect baseball, and he lost the perfect game in the 13th. Should he be given credit for a perfect game? 12 innings he was perfect for.
It's not a game. It's not
You're
a game.
saying no. So you would give a guy credit, Mac, if he pitched 5 perfect innings of a rain-shortened game. You give him credit for a perfect game for 5 innings, but you wouldn't give the guy who pitched 12 innings and went into extra innings and lost in the 13th.
I mean, I don't want to because
you're nodding. You're speechless.
I know I don't want to talk when your mic is up because I'm verbing back through you. But the rule simply says a complete game, Jack. Whether it's 5 innings or 15 or 20 innings, that's the rule. And you're talking 2 different things between perfect and no-hitter. I didn't know where you were going with that. But the rule says if you pitch a complete game, and why they took the no-hitter, they might have took. I don't know what you're talking about there. The rule says if you pitch a complete game, you no-hit somebody, you get a no-hitter. I don't know what's the debate.
Well, okay, Mac. We won't use it for a debate show. We kind of debated. We're indecisive here. We kind of regroup. Next time it happens, we got to revisit this topic.
Maybe we'll debate that. If you feel that strongly about that, we'll debate it. But I don't know. You would have to change the rule, Jack. I mean, that's what you would have to do. But I mean, again, haven't we changed enough rules in baseball and sports as it is? I mean, why not keep it simple? I don't know why people want to add things to rules and change the game. I don't get that.
Well, I'm going to tell you what they mentioned yesterday on ESPN. Tim Kirchhoff hated the idea. One of these minor league affiliates is having a home run derby to decide extra inning games to break the tie, but they're doing it with only one batter. Each team selects a batter. They get 5 pitches. Whoever hits the most homers, they win. It was my idea, home run derby, but not one batter. I'd go through the whole lineup. They each take one swing, and whoever has more at the end. I would do that after 10 innings because I wouldn't want a game to go on indefinitely. But listen, I mean, we got a lot of other sports, things to talk about, but they keep changing the rules. But I hate the guy on second base to start an inning. I hate it. I think that is an awful rule that really hasn't gone over too well.
Well, Jack, I think that, I mean, if you think about it, even with a home run derby, say you're a pitcher, you're just talking about pitchers right now, and you pitch a no-hit ball game, and it goes past 10 innings, and then some guy on the other team goes up against whoever's pitching that time and hits a home run. So all that 9 innings or 10 innings you pitch is for nothing because the guy hits a home run.
No, speaking of home runs, Pete Alonso, big home run hitter for the Mets, strikes out 4 times yesterday. It was futile. He looked awful yesterday. Awful. And we keep talking about the Yankees. Jeff McNeil hasn't been hitting. Francisco Lindor hasn't been hitting. Alonso struggled mightily yesterday. Why isn't Brandon Nimmo playing more? I mean, if he could pinch hit yesterday, I don't get why he's in the lineup behind Pilar right now. I just don't understand it, especially with the start that Nimmo got off to. And if he's hurt, why is he in altogether? If he could play a little, he then should be starting.
I agree with that. So let's go into the games for yesterday. Cleveland beats the Twins 7-4. The Pirates over the Royals 2-1. The Blue Jays beat the Nationals 9-5. The Rays beat the A's 4-3. The Braves beat the Cubs 5-0. Milwaukee beats the Marlins 5-4. Texas 6, the Angels 1. Arizona beats San Diego 5-1. Colorado beats the Giants 7-5. The Reds beat the Dodgers 6-5. In the locals, the Yankees 5, Orioles 1. LeMahieu went 2 for 4. Judge went 2 for 4 with an RBI. Urshela with a big hit for 2 RBIs. Kluber pitches 6 2/3 innings, gives up 1 run, Jack.
I'll tell you, the Yankees were newsworthy yesterday. Judge and Stanton going deep. That's what everyone envisioned when the Yankees picked up Stanton. It would be the Judge and Stanton show. That was so exciting when the Yankees first picked up Stanton at ESPN televised batting practice of the Yankee games in the beginning. Imagine that. Now the Yankees are in a gimme to get on ESPN altogether. But listen, Stanton's coming around now. Judge will be fine, as long as he's healthy. Oh, kudos to Clint Frazier for making an incredible catch the other day. I've been critical of him defensively, so kudos to him. But he's only hitting $132, so he's been about the worst hit in baseball. But he'll get going that way. But the big news in Yankee land wasn't the Yankees trading Mike Tauchman to the Giants. We wish Mike Tauchman well. The reliever the Yankees got back might be serviceable. We'll see. But Gary Sanchez has finally been, I hate to use the term bench, but Higashioka is going to be basically the starting catcher now. He's played well. He's earned earned the position. Gary Sanchez has been given every opportunity. He started this season well, then faded. And how long can the Yankees wait on him? I mean, the Yankees don't want to trade him and see him fulfill his potential elsewhere, but it gets to a point where you have to move on. Now, Gary Sanchez is still on the Yankee roster. He'll still get opportunities to play, and it's up to him to play well. If he could play well the times he's in, he could still recapture that starting position, down the line. But let's see what the attitude is. The Yankees probably aren't going to trade him. They need a backup catcher. He's part of the team. But Gary Sanchez basically forfeited his right to the starting position by not performing. It's that simple.
Yeah, well, you know my feelings on Sanchez. I was pretty loud about it in the beginning of the year, but they did what they did. The Red Sox beat the Mets, Jack, 2-1. Divers goes 2 for 4 with the RBI. Bobby Dalek went for one for 3 with the RBI. Garrett Richards goes 7 innings with 10 strikeouts, Jack. McNeil 1 for 3 for the Jets with an RBI. With the Mets for an RBI. So the Red Sox are still getting decent pitching, which is what they need to stay competitive. As you said, they're getting a key pitcher back. The Red Sox, I don't think are going to win the division, Jack, but it's going to be very interesting. I think a lot of people counted them out this year with them getting their old manager back and him knowing how to get to the series. I thought they would improve a lot this year. I don't know where they'll finish, but I do like the move with Correa going back there. And, we'll see what happens. I think Boston's been just as big a surprise as the Giants and as big a surprise as Kansas City. So we'll see what happens over there. They may run out of steam, like you say, Jack, but you get good pitching. You can stay in almost every game.
Well, getting Chris Sale back whenever he comes back, that's going to be a big one because Chris Sale is one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's healthy. So they're going to be getting a bona fide ace. You got to think of teams all over baseball, but let's focus on the American League East. They have reinforcements. Some teams are playing well, and they get an additional player like a Chris Sale. It's going to keep the Red Sox up there, perhaps. The Toronto Blue Jays, who haven't completely shown up, when they have George Springer back playing the way he's capable of, that's going to make a world of difference. That's going to add a major spark to their offense and defensively as well. And with the Yankees, Zach Britton's now back. He's going to be used. He's going to help their middle relieving. But the Yankees bullpen has been fine, so that hasn't been an issue. But when they get Luis Severino back for their starting rotation, that's going to be important. But it's the guys. They have Corey Kluber, pitched his best game in a couple of years yesterday. So that's really good news. And a few days ago, people were saying, is it time to take Corey Kluber out of the Yankees starting rotation? Stuff like that is pure foolishness. Who are they going to replace him with, first of all? And based on 2-3 starts, people want to move on from a former Cy Young Award winner. Give me a break. He's been hurt the last couple of years. Corey Kluber should be fine this year with the Yankees. And, of course, with Garrett Cole and Severino coming back, and if their bullpen can keep pitching the way it can, the Yankees will, I hate to use the word climb back into contention because what are they, like 4 games out right now? It's not that much. The Yankees haven't been playing well. But as you could tell, Mac, a team just has to go on a spurt for a couple of weeks, and then you take a look at the standings and you're astonished. They could go from last to first at this point in the season.
So, as I said, the Red Sox beat the Mets. The Phillies lose to St. Louis 5-2. Real Muto and Didi get RBIs with no hits. Hey, the Phillies right now, as you said, is the beginning of the season. I think they'll be there near the end. I think it's going to be a very competitive division, Jack, between the Phillies, the Braves, and probably the Mets. maybe the Marlins will jump into there too. I don't know. I think it's going to be a very competitive division anyway.
Well, what are the Phillies, like a game and a half out, something like that right now? They've gotten the hitting, that's for sure. Harper, Romuto, Hoskins. I mean, they have the bats, and it's early on. I mean, what are they, like 11 and 12 right now? It's like, it's going to be interesting when certain teams in the division separate from other teams. But the NL East, it's hard to figure. I think the Atlanta Braves are the class of that division. I think followed by the Mets. But, the Phillies, the Marlins, the Nationals, I think they'll be in the 3, 4, 5 range. But it's intriguing. It's a very intriguing division, like, for sure.
Definitely going to be, I think it's going to be a great competitive league. Live from Cleveland, I think, is where Pags is at right now. If I saw the post right, let's bring up the Philly sports guy to talk about a little Philly sports and other things going on with him. So, how you doing today, Pags?
Good morning, guys. And yes, you are correct. I am straight from Cleveland.
There you go. So, yeah, you settling in over there, getting ready for that great draft coverage that you should be having coming up in the next few days. All 3 days. I think you'll be there the whole time, aren't you, Pags?
I am going to be there. I'm going to be here all the way through to Sunday. So,
wow. That's going to be a long week, my friend. There's a lot of partying going on there, I would imagine. A lot of things.
Well, it started as early as last night. I went down to the flats in Cleveland and got myself settled in as doing my other show. Right from the bar.
One of the funniest things I ever heard about Cleveland was on a WWE telecast when Jesse the Body Ventura was an analyst. Vince McMahon was the lead announcer many years ago, of course, and he was saying where the WWE would be running their shows, and he said, next week we're going to be in Cleveland. And Jesse the Body was saying, oh, what a miserable city Cleveland is. You can't stand going there. And then Vince McMahon said the following week we'll be in Las Vegas. And then Jesse the Body said, that's my type of town. So that kind of cracked me up. But Cleveland, listen, they're thirsting for success. I mean, they had it with the Cavaliers one year. But listen, Pags, at least, you've had it, the Philadelphia Eagles and something about Cleveland. They could use a little boost. But, they got the Browns this year. So what's the latest in the Philly news? I'm sure Mac is going to get in.
Well,
has an order to go in.
Before we get to that, we do have a former Philadelphia player, as most of you are aware of. Maybe some of you aren't. That Pags always makes it just in time for our Wall of Fame. And this guy here is one of the greatest basketball players in the history of the game. That's right, folks. Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, one of the most incredible basketball players of any generation. Started off with the Harlem Globetrotters, ended up playing for Philadelphia for a while, and then ended up with the LA Lakers, where, of course, his big rivalry against Bill Russell. Those two went at it quite often over the years. So anyways, Wilt Chamberlain, 7-1, holds some of these records today as far as total points and rebounds and listen, he's got that 100-point game that nobody will ever touch. That's one record, Jack, that will never be broken. 2-time NBA All-Star, 4-time MVP, 7-time scoring champion. I think he was the rebounding champion like 13 or 20 times. I mean, it's just ridiculous what this man did, Jack.
I'm going to tell you, I was lucky. I got to see him play one game when I was a kid at the old Garden when the Sixers played the Detroit Pistons, and people were so critical of Chamberlain. It was ridiculous. What I remember about that game as a kid, the ball was passed to him, and instead of trying to score, he had in his hand, and someone in the stand says, he wants the assist, he wants the assist. But Chamberlain, I mean, his feats were absolutely amazing. I mean, he said once, someone can score 100 points in a game, but it's going to have to be a team effort of selfishness where they're going to have to focus on one player and everyone's going to have to be united getting that one player, the ball. But the things Wilt Chamberlain did, and the thing that impresses me the most, guys, you could talk about old-time players. He missed only something like 13 minutes in the whole season. I mean, and running up and down the court is running up and down the court, whether you're a modern guy or an old timer. And look at all the guys who are out, need to be rested today. And this is a guy who you could say played every minute of the season, every minute of every game. Unbelievable. And I don't care if you're playing against the Division III college kids, if you're an NBA player, to average 50 points a season. That means if you have a 30-point night, you've got to score 55 points the next 4 nights to just level it out to 50 points. Unbelievable. Why did he ever move on, Pax? From, he moved on to Warriors, well, they moved on to Philadelphia, and then he became an LA Laker. Why didn't he finish his career as a Sixer?
I'm assuming because they traded him. So I mean, at that time there wasn't free agency, so they would have had to have moved on from him, then traded him away. I guess it was a deal that was too good to be true for the Sixers at the time. It was amazing. I got to shake his hand one time. And it was funny because I was working at the Spectrum, and I never I'm looking at every tall guy. I'm like, is that him? Is that him? Is that him? The moment that he walked into a room, though, you knew it was him. It was just like, I'm talking like I was like 15, 16 years old. And I as he's walking out the door, I'm like, Mr. Chamberlain, I just want to shake your hand. And he shook my arm. Like his hands were so large. And it was just, and like it says, his charisma just filled the room from the moment he stepped foot in it. And I mean, not only was he a champion basketball player, he was a champion volleyball player. He was a black belt in Taekwondo. He was just the ultimate specimen of an athlete, and to average 48 and a half minutes in a season, is nobody will ever do those things again. They just won't. They won't ever happen again.
I was listening, guys, to Larry Brown being interviewed a few weeks ago in an old interview, and he was talking about a pickup game out in California with Magic Johnson and Wilt Chamberlain. And Magic Johnson said he won on the last basket, a disputed call. It wasn't one-on-one. It was like 2-on-2, 3-on-3. And Wilt wanted to play one more. They played one more game, and Larry Brown swears every time Magic Johnson drove to the basket, Chamberlain swatted the ball away. He said he never saw anything like it, the way Chamberlain dominated Magic Johnson. Now, could Larry Brown be exaggerating a little? Perhaps. But it just shows you what Chamberlain was capable of doing on the court when he would get enraged. And for people who say old timers like Chamberlain, how they play in the modern game. Now, he's not going to score average 50 points a game if he was playing today. But would he easily be on the short list of the best guys? Would he be better? No offense, Pax. Would he be better than Joel Embiid? Probably. Okay, but that's an argument for,
Hey, greatness, as I said before, greatness transcends. They changed the rules of the game because of some of the things that he did. He used to dunk on foul shots, and they stopped that because he was just able to step back and kind of just throw it in there, and then okay, then he had to do it underhand. He was like what, a 50% or 60% foul shooter because he had to do them underhand because he just didn't have that type of shot. When they have to change the game for a player, that is a special type of greatness. And even though he lost a number of those matchups with Russell had the rest of the team around him where he was really the only guy on the Lakers at that time. So I feel that he was the best player of that era. And when he's still talking about when Larry Brown was talking about that game, he was like 54 years old. Playing against Magic Johnson. So, I mean, think about that. You just think about that in like a realistic sense. I'm like, here it is. This guy's 54, 55 years old and probably still could have played in the league.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that, Pags. I don't know if he's a better scorer than Russell. But listen, Russell was the ultimate team player, a leader, a coach. I mean, you can't take that away from him.
No, it's a better scorer than Russell.
Yeah, it's not a dig on Russell at all.
Yeah,
It's just when you put the two of them together and you try to compare the two, there's not a comparison in a real sense. I know Russell got more rings, you know what I mean, and Russell was a better team player, but he did also have more pieces around him to be able to do that, and that was the thing. He couldn't cover everybody.
Well, the reason why Russell had that and Chamberlain didn't, because Chamberlain wasn't a team player. Chamberlain admitted he wasn't a team player, that he probably couldn't have played for the Celtics the way they ran over there because he wanted the ball. That was him. He was a scorer.
Good point. Mac, you make a great point. Excellent point. Chamberlain said the problem was his skills were too overpowering for the team concept, and he didn't think, like you were saying now, the Celtics would have won all those championships had he been there instead of Russell, because he was so much more of a dominant player. So Chamberlain would have been better going to like a weaker type team than Russell. He would elevate a weaker team a lot more than Russell ever would. But if you already have a championship caliber team and you put Chamberlain there because he was so dominating himself, you could run into problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like some of the newer players today, right, Jack? I mean, you got some players out there that, they want the ball all the time. They're scorers, and it kind of hurts the team they're playing with. And this, we'll see what happens. And that's why I still have my doubts about the Nets, but so on and so forth. So, Pags, let's hit baseball first with the Phillies. They're 11-12, 4-6 in the last 10 games. Lost to San Francisco yesterday, and they didn't even get it. I mean, they got RBIs off. I guess it was walks because there was no hits for their RBIs. They're half a game behind the Mets, planning to move Spence Howard into the rotation. They moved him off site to stretch him out. Good or bad thing for the Phillies?
Can't be any worse. They have gotten no pitching out of their fourth and fifth starters. I'm surprised that they still are trying to pitch Vince Velasquez. And I make the joke that every time we see the double V, we're not going to see a W. And it doesn't matter when he pitches. If it's in the beginning of the game and the end of the game, it ain't going to matter because he's going to give it up. He pitches great through the original order, but he's like a long reliever, but he's a long reliever that can only go 3 innings. He can only go through the first time through the order. After that, they know what he's got, and he gives it up. And the manager always, because his stuff is so dominant for the very short amount of time, that when it comes to the second time around, he's like, oh, he's got him. No, he doesn't. And it's very it's almost like a false sense of security that he's able to give. The Phillies, you know what? There's been a couple people hitting, like Real Muto, Harper, Hoskins. Those 3 guys have been doing their job.
Yeah.
Everybody else has not. I mean, you talk about some of the Yankees, and they had the Yankees at one point had 5 guys under 200 in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
We have a center fielder who I think the whole position is batting under 100.
Wow, man. Yeah, so, you guys got to hit. That's one good thing about you guys last year. You guys could hit the ball. I don't know, Pags. It's early though. They'll warm up. Normally, the pitching is ahead of the hitting in the beginning of the year. We'll see what happens with that. So you're tied with the Braves. I mean, the Braves are only half a game behind the Mets. I think the division, me and Jack were talking about just before you came out, I think it's going to be very competitive. I think I'm with Jack. I think the Braves would probably be the favorite if there is a favorite. But I think the Braves and the Mets are going to be going at it all year. I really do.
I agree. I think they're going to beat each other up, and I agree that it is a little early. Although, it being a little early, doesn't this sniff a little bit of the same thing as the NFC East?
Yeah.
Where everybody's not doing as well as they thought. They thought that the East was going to be the toughest division, and I know that we're beating each other up a little bit here in the beginning, but I mean, the games that we're playing outside, I think we're only going about 500 or less, which is a little funny because we were supposed to be the class of the Major League Baseball. I mean, it is early, and I expect that once we get into June, things will be different. But
I think so. Once the weather warms up a little bit, the batting starts warming up a little bit too. So we'll get to the 76ers, and Buck has a question for you. Will you be mad if the 76ers lose to the Nets and go to the finals? Well, I would imagine you would be a little upset if they did, right?
Well, mad is the wrong word there. I would be disappointed. That would mean that something happened within the team that they couldn't play well enough to get there, and I believe that they are the better team than the Nets. I feel like the Nets are afraid that they got all these players because they're afraid of the Sixers. And when you play out of fear, when you start to make moves out of fear, it doesn't bode well for the team. So my expectation is like I said this, and I said this all along. I thought that the Sixers were going to wind up number 2 coming out of the East, and that they were going to wind up representing the East in the final against an LA team. As of right now, I'm still holding to that. I've been saying it all season long.
I don't think the Nets are scared of the Sixers is the reason they make moves. I think for the most part, teams make moves. They just want to improve their team, put themselves into a position to win. I think it depends, too, if the two play one another in the playoffs, how the series unfolds. If the Nets beat the Sixers and it's a thrilling 7-game series, the Sixers could come back next year with even more resolve. But if the Nets were to beat them in 4 or 5 pretty easily, then it's a big problem. Vice versa, if the Nets were to lose decisively, which I couldn't see the Nets losing decisively in the playoffs to anyone. They just have too much firepower if they're healthy. But if it's a thrilling series that could go either way, I think both teams come back next year, equally determined. So it's not just a question of who beats who, but how they win.
I agree a little bit. I mean, hey, listen, the Sixers lost to quadruple doink. It bounced on that rim like 3 or 4 times before it went in by against Toronto, and then Toronto went on to win the championship. Had the Sixers won that game, it's likely they would have won the championship. There's a really good argument to that because I don't think the Bucks were playing very well, and I thought that the Sixers had their number that year. The following year, of course, we were in the bubble, and it's a whole different scenario, but the Sixers just got swept by Boston. You know what I mean? So the resolve came back this year. I am unsure that if the Sixers were to get beat handily by any team in the playoffs, including in the finals, that they're going to have the same fire that they did. I just don't know that the team has that type of makeup where, as a team, they're going to be enthusiastic about playing together to try to win a championship, unless they win a championship.
Yeah, listen, we always forget the Bucks, and because the Bucks, every time they make the playoffs, they kind of fold up. But the Bucks have the Sixers number this year, Jamie. If it comes down to a tiebreaker, they're 3-0 against the 76ers right now. I know a couple games where players were arrested, but that don't matter. So that may be very important come the end of the season in placement. I mean, you'd rather be number 2 playing, number 5 than number 3 playing number 4, I would think. So, we can't forget about the Bucks. You guys won last night. Simmons had 27, beating OKC. OKC's okay. But, we can't forget about the Bucks. We talk about the 76ers and the Nets all the time. That Bucks got a heck of a player over there playing for them. So,
I agree. And you know what? I mean, I think the Sixers kind of, threw in the towel against them the last two games. It's just, I mean, they get beat by 40 points. Both of those games was, ridiculous, I thought. But, and I know that there was the phantom injury on Ben Simmons. I know what was going on with that. It wasn't a phantom injury. He wasn't ill. He wasn't sick. He had some stuff that's going on that he had to take care of, and they couldn't really say it any other way. They didn't want to bring anything to light about that because it's a big deal on what he's dealing with, and ultimately it's it's not something that can be really spoken about right now because it really would take the focus away from the team as a whole. So they had to deal with it the best way they could. They said, hey, he was sick. And now he's back. And of course he comes back and he has some comments that really are going to put a fire under everybody else around him, saying that, saying some of the things he did, that obviously he's the defensive player in the year and this and that and this and that. And, it was just like, why are you?
Pax. But that's my next point with Embiid. He's missed games. Has his status as an MVP candidate, is it maybe starting to slip a little bit? I could sense it is. It's really starting to slip because he's not in there all the time. The Sixers aren't playing quite as well. I mean, is it his to lose as far as being the MVP, or is he just, or is he an elite spot right now? Is he the front runner as far as being the league MVP?
I think that he is. However, I think it's a much closer race than everybody's talking about. I feel that it is a lot closer. The media is really going to have the biggest tell on that. And if the Sixers are to trail off and wind up going into the conference, going into the playoffs, and in the third position, that is definitely going to affect what happens, in that MVP, in the MVP balloting. So my expectation is that it is his at the moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll end. It'll end.
But Mac made a great point that he woke me up to like a week or two ago. Who's more valuable to their team, Embiid to the Sixers or Julius Randle to the Knicks? And then, I really thought it over all of a sudden. When Mac mentioned it, the Knicks couldn't absorb a loss of Julius Randle and be anywhere near as good as they've been. But the Sixers could kind of maybe resemble themselves a bit more, even without Embiid. The other guys could pick up the slack a lot better, I think.
Agreed. That just because he's that great doesn't mean that the Knicks are winning games specifically because of his, or at least games against good teams because of him. You know what I mean? They're still only beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And there's an argument to be made for that. So I'm not taking anything away from what that guy's doing because he is carrying that team right now. And without him, they would probably be in, well out of a playoff spot. But they're not an elite team because of him either. And I think that that's some of the difference. I feel like that the elite status of where you finish in the seeding makes the biggest difference. I mean, you could see right now without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Yeah, that was without Davis too for a long time. In fact, Davis is really still hurt. The only thing I'll say about this is Embiid seems to want attention. That's the only thing I don't like about him right now. I'm the MVP. I'm the defensive player of the year. Just shut up and play basketball, man. That's all you got to do. Do your talking on the court. Do what you're good at. Embiid's a hell of a player. He's a great player. You don't have to try to campaign for it. Just play basketball, and where it goes. And Giannis is still going to be in the discussion. And there's a few other players that are going to be in the discussion this year. So I think, as you said, Pags, I think it's a lot closer. Embiid had definitely had it. Harden had it. Embiid had it. Now I think it's almost up for grabs. We'll see what they think. I mean, if Philly does fall off, in the third or fourth, you're right. I mean, that will affect it. If the Knicks move up to stay at fourth or move up to third, then then Randall might have it. We'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of different players that could lay claim to that this year. So let's get to the Eagles. Tomorrow night's going to be a big night for everybody. I've been reading a couple things about the Eagles because I cover all the Northeast sports, and it looks like they're eyeing a defensive end from Michigan, Pags. Now we've been talking, either a line, you were saying either a lineman or maybe a receiver, possibly a defensive back to help them out on the defensive side. But they've been eyeing this guy named, I think it's Kitty Pay, K-A-I-T-T-I. K-Y-I-T-T-I. It's a really crazy name. Maybe you know the name. P-A-Y-E. He's the pass rusher from Michigan. The Eagles say they remind him a lot of, a lot of Graham. Yeah. So they're supposedly they're looking at him. They could take him at 12. I want them to take him just because of the name, because I would love to say Kitty. If that's his name, maybe it's Kitey. I don't know. But I would love to say Kitty, like Gots to be there for the Flyers. I would love this guy just to say his name during the game. But he's a hell of a pass rusher. What do you think? You think the Eagles would make a mistake of doing something like taking a pass rusher?
I don't think you ever make a mistake by taking a pass rusher. You know what I think. I feel like that the game is won 3 yards from the ball. That's where the offensive and defensive line getting big guys that are fast. They don't make many of them. So if it's somebody who's worthwhile to take in that position, that's the problem. Is it somebody who would have you could take in the second round? Is he going to make it that far? I am a firm believer that if you're not going to take those types of guys, then you take the cornerback. That's where I would fall. It sounds to me like they are not expecting to be able to get the cornerbacks that they want or the receivers that they want, and that would be on the board as well for the defensive end. The one thing that I've learned about the Eagles is that anything that you hear in the rumor mill is never true. So that's just them putting out stuff so that people, they're trying to get players' stocks to rise without them trying to do anything.
Sure.
So, and I feel like that's kind of what they're doing here. I mean, I've heard a lot about Waddle, like all the receivers from Alabama. It seems that's on the board. It's going to be interesting to see what actually happens.
Well, let me tell you, Penn State is located nearby. If Micah Parsons is on the board, how can you not take him? I know there are off-the-field issues that are of concern, but he's one of the best players in the draft, and he's ready-made. He'll be ready to start and have an impact. I'm intrigued if Justin Fields drops in the draft. With the Eagles, you could never tell. I mean, considering they took Jalen Hurts in the second round when Carson Wentz was going well, I mean, that's kind of intriguing. Would the Eagles really shake up their fan base and actually take Justin Fields and have him compete with Jalen Hurts? Is that far-fetched?
Well, who knows? That's kind of where I'm at with that. My expectation is that they will not take a quarterback in this draft. Or if they do, they'll take one in the fourth or fifth round, somebody who's a lot lesser known, a little bit more of a project to have as a backup, to Flacco, like as a third quarterback and such like that. But who knows? Who knows? They fancy themselves as a quarterback factory. They have the most picks in the draft. The problem is that they have the most picks in the draft where we're not quite sure where this board is as unclear as any board has ever been because of the way the college season played out. So it's going to be tough to really say where people should be or shouldn't be and who they should or shouldn't take. My expectation is that they have so many other positions that they need to fit pieces into that. Why would you bother taking a quarterback? It seems like that spot specifically this season is a wasted spot.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
But hey, listen, you always got Flacco, so don't worry about it. The Flyers, we're gonna. I mean, this may be the last time we talk about them. Bags, pretty much out. They're done. What do you think of the offseason? What do the Flyers got to do? I mean, is it the coaching? Is it the management? What do they got to do over there to get them? I mean, they were expected to be in the top 4, maybe a favorite for the league, and they've just dropped like a rock. What do you think this offseason brings for them?
I wish that Seattle takes one of the big 3. I mean, I think that Giroux is not going to go anywhere. I think he's actually going to be protected because he only has one more season left on his contract. But I do hope that either Seattle will take Voracek or JVR. JVR has been the better of the 2 players, but the contracts are really, really oversized, and it's hampering them from doing things that they want to do. They need to get defense. The defense is so bad, and it's just they're leaving the goaltenders out to dry in so many games. The one thing I don't understand is why they continually are passing the puck and not shooting the puck. You know, I went to the game. I went to the game where they came back against the Devils the other day, and through 2 periods, the 2 players that shot the puck most were the guys that came from the Phantoms. You know, like Cates and Allison. And how is that possible? Why is that? Why is that even feasible? Why are we continually not shooting the puck on the net and trying to do a ticky-tack pass that never seems to be open, that sends the team in the opposite direction? You know, it's like they're always looking for that one little, touch pass that you're going to just be able to just sort of guide the puck into the net. And it never seems to be there because other defenses are playing back tight. It seems like we're never back tight. We're never in like a closed diamond or a triangle around the net. It's always that we're out a little too far. We're almost past the circles where they do the face-offs, and that bothers me. Just across the board, that bothers me. I feel that the special teams coaches for like the penalty kill and the power play, Michael Therrien has got to go. I feel like I'm willing to stay with AV another season, but I think the assistant coach has got to change up, and we need a different philosophy for those 2 special, for the special teams.
Hags, I mean, they've gotten so sloppy at times. There's one play where the puck was behind the net, and their goalie Elliott and the defenseman miscommunicated, and the Devils scored on them. I mean, but that's happened a number of times. There have been breakdowns on the ice, miscommunications. Doesn't that have a lot to do with the coaching?
Some. In fact, I would say it's a good amount because they continually give the puck up. They are always giving the puck up in their defensive zone, and I feel that has the biggest to do with coaching. That there has not been. The problem is they have not had a lot of time to be able to fix any corrections this season. That they forever seem to be playing 4 games in 7 days. And so for that reason alone, I'm willing to give a little bit of a pass. Not a tremendous amount of pass, but a little bit of a pass. Because if he comes out and this team is doing the same thing next year as they are this year, he's got to go quick. Yeah. And Fletcher would have to pull the plug very quick. The problem is I just don't know what's happening with the upper management of the Flyers right now. It's now become more of a corporate setting rather than a team setting, and I'm just not sure what are on the Flyers' minds.
So what do you got, Pags, for the rest of the day today? Are you going out? Are you getting contacts? Are you setting up anything for tomorrow? Or are you just going to start broadcasting, my friend? What are you doing out there?
So I actually do have to put in a little bit of work today, first and foremost. Sure. And then somehow, some way, I wound up getting not hired, but volunteering for the NFL yesterday. I was like, I found out exactly how to get through all their protocols and stuff like that so that I could try to get some credentials, which I'm going to try again today after I get off of work. And, I'm going to be doing a little bit of ins and outs. We're going to be doing some TikToks. We're going to be doing some lives. I have the NFC East show tonight that we're going to be doing live from the draft. Like we're going to be there's two levels, so you can able to see the stage from far away. We're going to try to get as close as we can. The problem is, trying to make sure that the Wi-Fi still works. So I want to get trying to make all that happen in a proper way. But it's going to be an exciting time here, and it's a lot of fun. There's already people are starting to come in. So I'm going to have a number of super fans that are going to be coming on the show here that are getting in tonight. Some are getting in tomorrow, and let the party begin.
Yes, sir. Yes, the party begin. Pags, thanks for taking some time out and coming on. I'll see you tonight on the NFC East show, representing my team, the Giants, and we'll have a little fun with that. And definitely, Kay, looking forward to the draft tomorrow, my friend. A lot of big guests, a lot of things happening tomorrow. It'll be all-nighter, 6 to the end of the first round anyway, for me, which is an all-nighter for me at my age. So it should be fun. Jack, I don't know, he might be falling asleep before the night's out. We'll find out. So
it's a lot. Listen, the Jets pick at number 23 again. That'll keep me alert. I'm curious what the Packers do with their late round selection. I don't know whether you heard the Packers a couple of days ago said Aaron Rodgers is our quarterback for the foreseeable future. When they use the word foreseeable future, that means there's discontent. So something's going to go down big in the NFL draft for one of the teams. Something big. I have no idea what it's going to be, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Hey, listen, I already got a source telling me something that I'm going to break tonight on the draft show. So we'll see what happens. Pags, thanks for coming in. Looking forward to seeing you tonight and, of course, tomorrow. Get some rest, do your thing, and I can't wait to see you, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. You guys have a great week.
Take care. See ya.
So there you go. Philly Sports Guy going to be live from the draft tomorrow for Northeast Streaming Sports Special. Please tune in. We'll be on the YouTube channel or at our Facebook page at N.E. capital S Streaming, capital S Sports. We'll be live on both sites. The YouTube channel, of course, is the easiest thing to get to. I can't wait to do that tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun, Jack. So we're going to take our quick break for right now, folks. We'll be back on the side, but we got another treat for you. We sure do. We've got probably the busiest broadcaster in the industry coming up at the 9 o'clock hour. Lance Meadows, WFAN, ESPN, Westwood One. I mean, he's all over the place. And we'll be talking a little bit about the Giants and their situation at draft and where they may go, where they might go. We'll see what happens, what he thinks, because if anybody has the inside information, Jack, it's Lance. We'll be right back after this, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath,
Coughing or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everybody. And as I get off of there you go, get off of this, and let's bring up Lance Meadowjack, who's joined us backstage, our Giants expert. He comes on once in a while to talk about the Giants with us, and we are honored to have him on. So let's bring in Lance. How you doing today, Lance?
I'm doing all right, guys. How's things with you?
Hey, Lance.
We're doing great, Lance. We're anticipating the draft tomorrow. We got a big show going on, and I was happy that you agreed to come on today. I know you're busy tomorrow, and you're busy all the time, but especially tomorrow. And I just want to get some of your thoughts on the Giants and where you think they might go in the draft this year. We'll set the table a little bit. Of course, a new coach last year, Joe Judge, put together a new staff with a lot of people he's worked for in the past and a lot of different head coaches that coached in different organizations, college and pro. The defense looked really, really good for the first year under their new defensive coordinator. I think they went past expectations. The offense we thought was going to be really good with the weapons, but they seemed to struggle a lot. A young offensive line, of course, Saquon hurt, Daniel Jones in his second year. So defensively, they've picked up a couple players. They had a young, inexperienced defensive backfield. That's changed. And offense, they got a few new weapons. First of all, what do you think about what they did last year, Lance, in building their team up in different areas, especially defensively?
Well, I think the defense did exceed expectations, to your point, last year. I don't think that was the facet that I thought was going to do the majority of the heavy lifting. Also, nobody anticipated that a number of guys were going to be banged up on the offensive side of the ball, specifically Saquon, and then Sterling Shepard went down immediately right after that. So I think they feel good about the defensive unit coming back. And what that group did, I would argue, over the second half of the season under Patrick Graham's scheme. They also got Xavier McKinney back late in the season. He played the last 6 games, their second-round pick last year. So the nucleus is in really good shape, other than I think some questions about can they stop the run as effectively as they did the previous year because of the loss of Dalvin Tomlinson. They brought in Danny Shelton, who's a big nose tackle, who was with Joe Judge in New England, also played for Detroit. But Dalvin Tomlinson was that staple, that reliable guy that was in the lineup every single game. I don't think you could overlook his loss. I think it's going to take a group of guys. And my big question about this defense is it's not whether or not this group could play at a high level. I think they're capable of doing that. It's the consistency of stopping the run and doing the things that really help the secondary flourish. That, I think, is the question mark coming in, at least, that still hovers over this squad.
What do you think about the pickup of their second cornerback? I mean, and of course you got Logan, and I mean, I think their defensive backfield has become one of their strengths, believe it or not. That was considered maybe one of the weaknesses because of their inexperience last year. Peppers is playing off the hook, and they look like an experienced backfield right now with a lot of young guys just beneath them, ready to explode on the scene too. I think they did really well, picking up with Logan and their two cornerbacks now that make it a strength maybe the defense, Lance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they got a lot of versatility back there too, meaning players that could play corner as well as safety. When you think about McKinney, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, those are all players that could play near the line of scrimmage, and they could also play deep in center field. So I think that gives Patrick Graham some comfort that, God forbid, you lose a player for a few games, you feel somebody else can fill the void. They added Adoree Jackson, who's another player that could play inside. He could play outside. James Bradbury had a fantastic first season with the Giants. He and Blake Martinez, I thought, were excellent additions. And Darnay Holmes is a young up-and-coming cornerback who showed some flashes last year. They still need to put a little bit more polish on that young player, but you like what you're working with. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But, I always say, even though you look at that unit as a strength and you say, well, how could they add more? You just can't guarantee that all players are going to be suited up for 16 games. So if the Giants wanted to go out and add another player to the secondary, I certainly wouldn't fault them. But I would agree with you. I think that is definitely the strength of the defensive side of the ball, especially with the loss of Dalvin Tomlinson, and questions whether or not they could get the same amount of sacks they did last season, especially since they were right in that ballpark of 40, which is something they hadn't done over the last few seasons.
People are saying, Lance, that the Giants need an edge rusher more than any, other position. But going at number 11, the value might not be there. That might be a little bit of an overreach because none of the edge rushers on the board are projected to go that high. So is this the type of year that they might trade down, figuring they could get the guy they want and get additional value?
Well, Dave Gettleman's never traded down in the history of his tenure as a general manager. So it would be a first, but hey, records and streaks are meant to be broken. So it's very feasible. I would agree with you. I think if they are targeting a pass rusher, perhaps if there's not going to be a run on that position and somebody else wants to jump up to get another position, maybe the Giants could capitalize. I don't think that's a stretch, but here's my philosophy when people say it wouldn't match up with value. If you love a guy and you think that high of him, then you know what? You take him and you don't ask any questions, because when we talk about the draft, first of all, it's the land of the unknown to begin with. Nobody knows how the bulk of these players are going to pan out. So as long as there's conviction in the room and everybody feels great about the player and you think he's going to be an impactful player, then you take him and you don't ask any questions. There's always surprises every year where a player was taken sooner than anticipated because nobody projected him, and then the player actually turns out to be a quality guy. For example, Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. He may be a guy that the Giants think highly of. I mean, you watch him on film, there's certainly a lot to like, but, there's also some question marks. Jalen Phillips out of Miami. This is a guy that dealt with concussions. He retired, but he certainly has the skill set that can flourish on the NFL level. So I could go through a laundry list of pass rushers. They all have things you like. They all have things you're a little bit worried about. Maybe they opted out. But if the Giants figure that they're a good fit in Patrick Graham's scheme, and the Giants absolutely need a pass rusher, even though Lorenzo Carter and O'Shane Ximines are coming back, you still want to protect yourself there. If they feel good about a guy, then I say you take him at 11 and you don't ask any questions.
But Micah Parsons might be on the board at number 11 from Penn State. And some people feel he's the best defensive player in the draft. But reportedly, there might be off-the-field issues. And the Giants are very sensitive in that area. They really want character guys. I mean, how might that weigh into it if Micah Parsons is there for them? He's going to be a hard name to turn down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Micah Parsons a lot, and I think he will be in play at 11 as one of the players that the Giants could choose from. And I think he'd be an intriguing player to add to a Patrick Graham scheme that likes to move guys around. Micah Parsons, he's a guy that could cover sideline to sideline. There's no question he could be a great complement to Blake Martinez. And I think there's room for his game to grow. Remember, he opted out last season. The last time he played, he was 19 years old. So if they feel that, to your point, there's some immaturity issues. It's understandable. He was a teenager the last time he played. There's some question marks. The question is, if he comes into this environment with this coaching staff, can you get more out of him? And I think the answer is yes. However, with that being said, remember, they moved up to take DeAndre Baker in the first round 2 years ago, and that did not pan out well. People are going to bring up Odell Beckham. With Odell Beckham, though, it wasn't off the field issues. It was more of personality and whether or not he can mesh well with others. So I think that's completely misconstrued. I think it's unfair to throw Odell Beckham into the conversation because he didn't do anything wrong off the field. Okay, he didn't get in trouble with the law. So DeAndre Baker is the only guy that maybe you want to throw out there. There's always pros and cons with young players, not with all players, with young players, because Micah Parsons is still very young. The other thing is, this is the other question. I think to throw out some of the other things that are much more important to question than maybe the immaturity issues, I think it's the fact that he opted out. And you didn't see him on film last year. Do you figure he's going to pick up where he left off? What has he been doing off the field? This is where you got to do your homework and your research, and you have to talk to the individuals that were working with him, that were around him. If they feel content about that, then I think he's a fine pick. It's more about what was he doing by not playing with the team this year. You have to answer that more so than, to me, the immaturity issues, because he was young. You expect him to grow up now that he's in his 20s, and you provide the structure that can allow him to flourish.
Do you think maybe the connection with Spence, with
Sure.
Coach Spencer, might be there in play there? Because, you know, being a defensive line coach there at Penn State, I mean, he might have some inside information on the kid a little bit and see where that plays out. Maybe that'll be the deciding point. I mean, if you got a personal knowledge of a player. So on the offensive side, their offensive line, very young, brand new center, a couple rookies, Thomas and Pert, trying to fill in the tackles. A real big surprise at guard with Lemieux. I mean, that was a big pickup for them. They were trying to work him out as center. I don't know if do you go get would you think about getting an offensive lineman at 11, Lance, or is that something maybe you look at down the road, maybe in the second round to pick somebody up? Do you think they need an offensive lineman?
I do think they need an offensive lineman, and I think it is an area that is not a reach at 11. I like Rashawn Slater because Slater is the type of player that some people project he could play all 5 positions, which would be fantastic. But I do think at least he's got some flexibility to be at a tackle and a guard position. And you could argue the Giants right now have not solidified their guards. I think, to your point, Shane Lemieux, who only played the second half of last season once Hernandez got COVID, and then Will Hernandez lost his starting job. Part of it was COVID, but I think part of it was he was up and down a little bit. So you're coming back into this year with Will Hernandez entering the final year of his rookie contract. There's no guarantee he's going to be here beyond 2021. And Shane Lemieux, you didn't really have a huge sample size to know, hey, he's one of our guards moving forward. So as far as I'm concerned, the Giants definitely have some question marks. Now, Jonathan Harrison, the free agent they signed from the Jets, he could play center and guard. So he's an option. But once again, I don't look at any of these guys absolutely long-term answers. So there is room to draft somebody who they feel really good, and you get a new, fresh clock where if it's in the first round, you get a 4-year deal plus a 5th-year option. There's absolutely room to draft an offensive lineman. So Slater is attractive. I don't think he's going to be there. Penei Sewell, I think, is wishful thinking. I don't think he's going to be there. Then you start to think about Vera Tucker out of USC. He's not a tackle, though. He's a guard. Now, if you think he could come in and be a guy that's going to start for you for 10 years, it's something you consider. There are some people that project that. Do I think he's Quentin Nelson, who went to the Indianapolis Colts a few years ago as a top guy? No. But once again, it's about conviction in the room. There is room to add an offensive lineman. I also think with their second-round pick, they could get somebody of quality. I wouldn't rule that out. So I don't think they have to go in the first round for that position. But to go back to your question, yes, I do think there's room and a need to add an offensive line.
Lance, so how come, Lance, in today's modern NFL draft, running backs get no love? They get moved out on the board. Like Travis Etienne from Clemson, I think's outstanding. And he'd be good value at number 11, but he's not going to go that high. He's going to go somewhere in the 20 to 30. That's what it's projected. And the Giants really need another running back. How come he's not given any consideration? Is it because of the mindset of the NFL? You get a good offensive line and you can plug in any running back. What's the deal there?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think if you look at the injury rate of the running back position, if you can't guarantee that a player is going to stay on the field, case in point, look at Saquon Barkley. As great as Barkley is and as dynamic as he is, and Saquon's not a running back. In fairness, Saquon's a weapon. I don't think it's fair to put him under the label of running back, but over the last 2 years, Saquon has missed at least a quarter of the season. So you invest a high pick in that player, and because of the hits and the pounding that position takes, regardless of the size of the player, it just doesn't necessarily always equate to how high you selected a running back or the amount of money you put in the running back. And I'm not saying, by the way, that the Giants made a bad decision with Saquon. Don't misinterpret my words. All I'm saying is, big picture, I think most teams think we can continue to draft a running back every 2 years to get younger at that position, and we could find a free agent that maybe is not going to cost an awful lot in the salary cap. Plus, to your point about the Giants, yeah, they could use a running back, but Wayne Gallman did a heck of a job last season. They were able to pound the football effectively, and they lost Saquon Barkley. So it just goes to show you, if you have a good strategy, if your offensive line blocks, and you have some versatility where a guy could catch the ball to the backfield, I think you could get away from having to invest in a high draft pick at that position. Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, who you were alluding to, are both solid players. Once again, I don't think most teams are saying, boy, if we don't pick them, there's no way we could find another true dynamic playmaker. So I think that's a big part of why you don't see running backs go high. Remember, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the first running back that went last year. He went with the very last pick to the Chiefs, and oh, by the way, he got hurt, missed the last few games, and then when he came back in the playoffs, he really wasn't the same guy that we saw earlier in the season. So it really goes back to the injury rate at that position.
Lance, we're always looking at the high skill players, like at wide receiver especially. We got some good ones out there. You mentioned, Shepard being hurt. He's a little guy, dynamic but little. They're always looking to improve in that spot. We did in the offseason, tight end and at wide receiver with Galladay. Waddle might be there. Waddle reminds me a lot of Victor Cruz, if you want to know who he reminds me of. He's that fast. He's got breakaway speed, can play in the slot and make people miss. If he's there at 11, do you think it's a good investment to get somebody like a Waddle that could maybe turn a game around, or is it safer, going with the offensive line or a defensive lineman?
Well, I think there's a chance that Waddle and or Devontae Smith could be there at 11. And I think both of those guys are in play for the Giants. And I do think both of them would be a fine selection. I really like Devontae Smith. I know there's a lot of question marks about his weight. I don't get it. He stayed healthy in college. You look at his film, he got separation. So I don't doubt his abilities at the NFL level. And also the college rules, guys, are so much more difficult than the NFL rules. What I mean by that is a defensive back has more leeway to grab you after 5 yards. In the NFL, you can't get away with that. So if he dealt with that at the college level, why would he be ill-prepared to deal with that on the NFL level? I really like Devontae Smith. If you could add him to the Giants receiving core with what they've already have in previous drafts and Kenny Galladay, I think the more the merrier. Here's the other thing, and I go back to injuries. Just like we were talking about the running back position. Kenny Galladay played only 4 games last year. Sterling Shepard's been banged up over the last few seasons. Darius Slayton played hurt last year. You cannot guarantee me, guys, that all of them are going to stay healthy for all 16 games. You also can't guarantee me that they're all going to be here for beyond 2 to 3 years. John Ross is another one, by the way, they added. He's failed to stay healthy. So while if you throw out the receiving core and you tell me on paper this group looks amazing, I'm not going to disagree with you. But amazing all of a sudden dissipates the minute you start getting into the season with injuries. So there is absolutely room to add a playmaker at the wide receiver position Devontae Smith, I think, provides a little bit more versatility because of his special teams play than maybe Waddle. Waddle also is coming off of the injury, the surgery. I know Devontae Smith hurt his finger. I think both are really good players. If you ask me, I'd lean more towards Devontae than Jalen Waddle, but I do think one of the two will, in all likelihood, be in play at 11. I don't think all three wide receivers are going to be taken before the Giants get ready to select.
I agree with that. I've been looking at this quarterback class, and besides Trevor Lawrence, and a lot of people disagree with me, I don't see a strong class out there, Lance. I mean, you got some that could be good quarterbacks, but as far as, like the class of Eli or the class, if you're going to go all the way back to Elway, I don't see that this year. I see some potentially good quarterbacks, but nothing in stone. I mean, even Trevor Lawrence, he hasn't played the NFL yet, so we really don't know. But if you're going to say something that might be guaranteed, it might be Trevor Lawrence if he stays healthy. The other ones I just don't see, and of course, a lot of the Giant fans are, we should try to get Fields. I think that's crazy. I think this is maybe a make or break year for Daniel Jones and maybe even for Gettleman. Who knows if he'll even stick around after next year with his health issues? But I mean, do you see any possibility the Giants going after a quarterback?
No, I'd be absolutely stunned. Yeah. I think the priority this year is, to your point, to surround Daniel Jones with talent and continue to add to what they already had last season. Overall on the roster, on the defense and the offensive side of the ball, you pick another quarterback in the first round in a very short period of time. That means you took two quarterbacks in the span of 3 years. How exactly is that helping your cause? Now, this is going to ruffle the feathers of Jack, but I'm going to go there anyway, because we go to his team, the Jets, okay, who in all likelihood are going to take a quarterback. Well, they took Sam Darnold, right, in the first round in 2018. Now, I get it. The Jets need a quarterback because they traded away Darnold. I think there was still room with a new offensive coaching staff to bring talent around Sam Darnold. That may be a conversation for another day, but the point is that team now has utilized two very high picks in a short period of time on the same position where you can only play one guy at any given possession. Can't put two quarterbacks on the field, right? So why would you even go down that well? It makes absolutely no sense. That's why I think the Giants' priority is, and they'll be in a position to add a playmaker on either side of the ball with the 11th overall pick. As far as this quarterback class is concerned, I'm with you, Mac. I think Trevor Lawrence is the most attractive because he's a 3-year starter. That's important when you're projecting success. Zach Wilson does remind me a little bit of Baker Mayfield, and I'm a big fan of Baker, so there's intrigue there. I would go, if I'm the Niners, Justin Fields 3. I'm very surprised. Now, maybe San Francisco's just throwing this out there to make people overthink, and they do take Justin Fields. But Trey Lance has started 17 games, and Mac Jones was surrounded by a lot of talent, and he also started 17 games. People forget, even though Mac was there, he didn't start an awful lot. I like to see it on the college level as opposed to projected. I have nothing against Mac Jones. I think he's a solid intellectual quarterback. I have nothing against Trey Lance. But they haven't started a lot of games at the college level, and that worries me when you look at the Dwayne Haskins and the Mitchell Trubisky's of the world. Those guys were 1-year starters, and it didn't translate. It didn't register because, you know why? There's so much impatience on the NFL level that you got to instantaneously produce. And sometimes these quarterbacks that only have 1 year starting experience, they need 2 years maybe before they really come into their own. And NFL teams just don't have the luxury to allow them to get there after a needed 2 years.
No, every year, Lance, we get a surprise. Someone drops in the draft. Hypothetically, what happens if Sewell from Oregon drops to number 11? I don't think it's going to happen, but it's conceivable. Did the Giants all of a sudden call an audible, not expecting him to be there, and they grab him? You can never have too many good offensive linemen.
Sure. If Penei Sewell is still on the board when the Giants pick 11, I mean, something tells me they'll probably do jumping jacks in that room, and I don't think they would hesitate in heavily considering him because he is certainly one of the top offensive line prospects. I don't think there's any question. However, the reason why I put Slater as somebody that I think is a better fit for the Giants is Slater has positional versatility. Slater also did not opt out. So Sewell opted out. And like we were talking about Micah Parsons earlier, do you feel good about what you saw in Sewell 2 years ago that you think he's going to pick up right where he left off? That would be the one hesitation, Jack, that if you're the Giants, even if Sewell is on the board, that I would weigh him still against other players. I'd be excited, but I don't know if I would run it up there because I think there's a few more question marks about him than there is with Rashawn Slater. But yes, if he falls, he should absolutely be in play for the Giants because, once again, Nate Solder's coming back, but there's no guarantee he's here beyond this year. And Matt Peart played 15% of the snaps last year. Matt Peart is still young. He was a third-round pick. That's not to say he's not in the picture, but I don't want anybody to tell me after watching 15% of the snaps last year that he's your starting right tackle, and there's absolutely no question. That, I think, is getting ahead of ourselves.
I agree with that, Lance. And, Matt Pierce, from where I'm up here in Connecticut, UConn doesn't have the greatest program in the world, that's for sure. In fact, they have a pretty bad program. He might have been the best player on UConn, but, going up against different types of competition does count when you're playing, at higher levels. And it's going to take him, I knew it would take him a few years to become good if he's going to become good. I agree with you. And me and Jack have talked about this, about Sam Darnold. To me, with the Jets, if they do take Zach Wilson, the Jets basically traded away for the same player. I mean, interceptions are pretty high. He tries to push the field down the ball down the field too much. He's a little bit of an athlete. It was crazy to me that the Jets would take an experienced guy that at least has played in the league in a while and brought in a younger version of him who might have the same problem for the next 3 or 4 years. That just blows my mind, Lance.
Well, it blows my mind that they brought in Mike LaFleur, who is their offensive coordinator, who comes from the Shanahan School of Thought. And you've got a good defensive-minded head coach who did a really good job with the Niners defense. I just think it was a little surprising that they didn't say, hey, Sam Darnold unfortunately dealt with some injuries. He didn't have stability with the offensive play caller. Why can't we do what San Francisco did, where, they took Jimmy Garoppolo and when healthy, they were able to surround him with playmakers and get to a Super Bowl. I'm a little surprised that that wasn't the conversation in the room and utilizing that first-round pick on something that could actually help your quarterback immediately, as opposed to resetting the clock. Now, listen, I hope for the sake of the Jets, Zach Wilson does turn out to be a good quarterback if that's where they go, because you hate to see these teams continue with the revolving door, but I don't love that philosophy. It's the same thing with Denver, for example. Not to get off topic, there's speculation maybe the Broncos, right, will take a quarterback at 9. Well, Drew Lock was a second-round pick. You drafted him 2 years ago. You brought in 2 offensive coordinators. He was in and out of the lineup. How about you provide some stability for the quarterback as opposed to all of a sudden jumping back into the well? It's a really head-scratching philosophy. And let's face it, it really has not worked out very well for just about any team that's done.
I agree.
So I just want to point out one thing. Even though Carolina gave up a number 2, a number 4, and a number 6 against Sam Darnold, they haven't picked up his 5th-year option. And there's talk at number 8 that if Justin Fields is there, that Carolina's actually going to draft him, let him compete with Sam Darnold, and maybe flip Sam Darnold and see what they can get, during the draft. So I think it was the 5th-year option that played into it in large part with Sam Darnold. The Jets' hand was forced. They had to make a decision. Either they were going to make a long-term commitment to Sam or not. And after 3 years of not quite getting it done, I kind of agreed with the decision to move on. But with this quarterback class, you mentioned a good point, Lance. How can you tell? Someone like Trey Lance, 17 games of his college career. I mean, is that enough of a body of work? I really don't think so. But what other choice do the NFL evaluators have?
Well, I also think there's that desperation, to your point, to find the quarterback because it clearly is the most important position and it can provide stability. So, yeah, once you parted ways with Sam Darnold, to your point, the Jets had absolutely no choice. You knew they were going to have to go out and grab a quarterback unless a veteran fell out of the sky that they never anticipated, like Andrew Luck returning to play football, and you aggressively went after him. So, yeah, I understand why, obviously, there's going to be a push for them to get a quarterback at number 2. But to your point, you could have exercised the option with Sam Darnold. You could have seen how year 1 with the new coaching staff goes and then made a decision. Remember, you still have the franchise tag. It's not as if Sam Darnold was going to leave without you having some control. There's flexibility under the cap. So I disagree slightly where it was, oh, my God, if he doesn't pan out this year, you have no other option. I mean, they still had some flexibility. And Carolina, by the way, you could talk all you want about maybe they're going to draft another quarterback. How about also solidifying that offensive line to make sure Sam doesn't go through what he went through with the Jets? Part of me thinks that should be important. Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator. Matt Rule was a former offensive line coach with the Giants. How about utilizing your pick to make sure the quarterback you just acquired flourishes as opposed to being worried about bringing him in for competition purposes?
Well, just quickly on New England, I mean, it's very intriguing how they're going to address the quarterback situation. A lot of people speculate they're going to move up in the draft. I don't believe it. But at some point, it is going to have to get addressed unless Bill Belichick really believes he can put the pieces around Cam Newton and Cam Newton can get it done for them. I mean, what do you think the story is with the New England Patriots?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really buy this hype and narrative that New England is going to be ultra aggressive and move up for a quarterback. First of all, they don't have a track record of doing that. Now, granted, they've never truly had an opportunity to pick as high as they are this year at 15. But I just don't look at them laying out all of their resources to grab who may be the fourth or the fifth quarterback on their board, or somebody that in all likelihood is going to need an immense amount of help. And let's face it, all of these quarterbacks have appeal. All of them have question marks. Do you really think, if indeed 5 quarterbacks get taken in the top 10, do you really think the percentage is in their favor that all 5 are going to pan out? Even if you go back to, guys, 2018, when 4 went, that was the Sam Darnold year. Josh Rosen, okay, he's now with his 3rd team. Okay, Josh Allen has now started to come into his own. But the bottom line is there's some question marks still with that group. So, no, I don't buy the fact that New England's going to be ultra aggressive. I would say that what they did this offseason, Jack, to your point, is they felt Cam did not have a true offseason. He didn't have a lot of weapons around him. He needs to make better decisions, but he didn't have a lot of weapons. So they brought in the weapons this year. They shored up the defense. They were terrible in stopping the run. You saw they brought in all those big bodies up front. And I think their philosophy is more familiarity with Josh McDaniels' offense, in addition to better weaponry. Cam should be able to improve. So I think that's their game plan. And then, listen, if they take a flyer on a Davis Mills or a Kyle Trask, I don't think that's crazy to maybe develop the guy. But no, I think the plan is Cam, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure Cam has what he needs to work with, because he gives us a better chance to win immediately than the 5th best quarterback on our board.
I definitely agree with all that, Lance. Lance, what are you doing tomorrow for the draft? Are you going to be broadcasting also?
Yeah, we'll be doing some quick reactions on Giants.com all throughout the evening. And we're going to have live draft shows throughout the course of the weekend, specifically late Friday and on Saturday for the bulk of the afternoon, going pick by pick.
And you're on the Big Blue Kickoff, if I'm saying it right?
Correct.
Okay,
that's right. That's on Giants.com.
There you go. So, folks, get a chance, go over to Giants.com. Check out Lance. He does a great job over there. Always does a great job wherever he's at. Lance, we appreciate you again coming in. We love having you aboard. Nobody knows the Giants like you. And have fun. We're going to have a long night over here, so have fun tomorrow, Lance.
Absolutely. Well, guys, buckle up, as they say. Get ready for the marathon, and appreciate you having me on, as always. Thanks so much.
Great stuff, Lance. Thanks a lot.
You got it. Take care, guys.
You too. So there you go. The great Lance Meadows stops in again for us to talk about the Giants. And as I said, Jack, man, this guy is busy as you can be.
I love listening to Lance when he's on. I'm a fan listening to him talk the NFL, and I like asking him certain questions. The draft is going to be a big surprise. I'm sure the next time we speak to Lance, we're going to say, wow, we didn't see certain moves coming. There's going to be at least one move in the NFL draft that's really going to floor all of us. No idea where it's coming from. We're all going to be sucker punched out of nowhere with it. But it's going to be really, exciting.
I definitely agree with that. And I've already talked to Lance, and he said he would come on with us after the draft. So maybe next week we'll have him on, Jack, to talk about that. So, folks, last break for today. We'll be right back with after these messages. We got a lot of more sports to get to, guys. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack, and we just got on talking to Lance Meadow, a great broadcaster from all over. He's a Giants expert. He does a lot for Giants.com. And we also talked to the Philly sports guy who will be with us, Jack, all tomorrow night, checking in and out as we do our big draft special over there at Northeast Streaming Sports, where we'll be on YouTube channel, our own YouTube channel, and on our Facebook page, Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page. We'll also be going live from here too. We'll be sharing to a lot of different outlets. Jack, we've kind of maybe adopted a team, right? A professional team in Connecticut, where they're called the Connecticut Falcons, and they're a semi-pro football team in a semi-pro football league up here in the northern part of the region. It's the Triborough League. And I got a little highlight to show the folks out there from the Connecticut Falcons, and I'm going to try and bring it up here. Let me set the stage for you. It was their first game. They're 1-1 right now, and they were playing against the Huskies, another team out there up in the Triborough area. And it was the fourth quarter, Jack. And this is one of the last plays of that game. And I'll let you see their first game here if I can bring this up here. Let's see if we can do it. Boom, boom. And go there, and let's play it. This is the last drive, Jack. In the backfield, that's quarterback number 7. Hitting number 16. So number 7 is Ryan Falquera hitting Taquan Brome. And you see they're getting a little bit closer. And it's knocked away there, and as you see, it's in the 4th quarter. They give it to that little quick guy again. I got to get his name for the audience. I got their roster. Right now, Falquera goes back to Brome. And watch this catch, Jack. And they won the game. So that's our team that we have kind of adopted, Jack, the Connecticut Falcons.
Yeah, that was some quality football there, Mac. People don't realize these guys have played elsewhere. They've played college ball. I mean, some of these guys were high school stars when they played. So the whole question is them coming together as a team when they play these games, because they have a limited amount of practice time compared to, let's say, an NFL team. So, you know, they do their best they can under that circumstance. As a team, basically, it's an audible calling the plays. But you can tell just watching the way they line up, the way, you know, the wide receivers go out. You know, they've played ball on a high level before.
Yeah, I've been talking to one of the owners on a regular, and a lot of these guys go down to Florida they play year round, Jack. They'll play here in the spring. They'll go down to Florida and play, you know, during summer and through the year. Some of them have made it to the pros. Some have gone back to college, Jack, to finish up. So this is where the dreams are still, you know, they're still keeping their dreams alive, wanting to play in the NFL. And as I said before in a previous show, the Hartford Knights up here had 4 players on our team that went on to play in the pros and were all pros. So this is kind of where they keep their dreams alive. And we don't have any other pro football teams here in Connecticut. And really, New York doesn't have a pro football team because they have both moved to New Jersey. So you can see some pro football being played. It only costs, I think, $10 a ticket to get in there and see them. They're having a game here coming up in first. I mean, I'm gonna get more information on where they play, how to get there, and we'll kind of advertise for them a little bit because to me it's really cool that you can go watch some, even though it's semi-pro, it's still professional, and these guys are out there giving everything they got, and maybe we can get some more eyes on them, Jack.
Well, it's good, and it's excellent entertainment. I mean, you get to see a really good quality product when you go to the game. And listen, it's so hard to get a ticket to go to an NFL game and what it's going to cost. And when you see a lot of the NFL games, you're going during a time of the year where the weather might not be really suitable. But to see these games, and the guys really appreciate your support. You know, you see these semi-pro games. It really means a lot to them to see people in the stands.
And believe it or not, there's semi-pro leagues all across the country. So I've even reached out to the head of the league, and we'll be talking later in the future. So let's get back to our sports coverage. We're going to take a quick look at the NBA. Right now, the Nets have clinched a spot in the playoffs. They're in first at 41-20. The 76ers are behind them. They got two more games before they clinch. The Bucks have at least clinched being in the playoff round, so they're there. The Knicks and Hawks are tied at 4th. The Celtics are in 6th, and the Heat are half a game behind them. So the East is still very competitive, and anything can happen. just because the Nets clinched the playoff spot don't mean they're going to finish in first. So it's going to be an interesting end of the season with the playoffs coming up there. And the West, the Jazz are in first still at 44-17. Look out, the Suns are right behind them now. They're at 43-18. The Clippers are holding on to third. They only got 2 more losses than the Suns right now. And Denver is at fourth. The Lakers holding on to fifth. And Dallas right now, Jack, is in sixth.
No, the NBA is all about playoff positioning right now. That's all it matters to them, keeping their guys healthy, being ready for the playoffs, and seeing what potential matchup you might have according to where you're seated. There's certain teams who, believe it or not, Mac, might not mind dropping down a peg if it means an easier matchup during the playoffs. So that's all it's about right now. That's why you see so many players being rested, so many, if they have the slightest thing the matter with them, they're not going to chance it. They're certainly not going to play through it. And that's all it is. I mean, with every team, who's guaranteed a playoff spot being there. And then in the 7 to 10 position, you see certain teams scurrying to try to get, the last spot, especially the number 10 spot. You see a team like the Washington Wizards, who are like 1 game in front. Yeah. You see Russell Westbrook, to his credit, laying it all out every night, to just get into that unofficial playoff round 7 to 10 to see if they could advance. A team like Golden State, who's been struggling, they hold the 10th spot. They're about 3 games ahead of the Pelicans. So the Warriors are probably going to back into that unofficial playoff spot. And, that's all it is, really, maneuvering, for the playoffs this year.
I agree, Jack. In the NHL, the East is so tough right now. I mean, you got Washington in first, which a lot of people knew they would be good, but I don't know if they knew they'd be that good. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are surprising everyone. I mean, they're playing some really good hockey. The Capitals swept the 3-game series against the Islanders, playing good. You have to play good defense against the Islanders. You have to play like they play. Of course, the Islanders have as good a shot as anybody at getting in there. So it's very, very competitive in the East. I can't wait to see what happens in the playoffs, Jack.
Mac, hold on a second. That last remark you made sense a few days ago. It doesn't, as far as the Islanders having as good a chance. The Islanders will go neck and neck for the first position. They're 5 points out of first place. They're only 5 points ahead of the Rangers, and the Rangers in the 5th spot. And if you fall into the 5th spot, you don't make the playoffs. Only the first 4 teams do. Can the unthinkable happen? Can the Islanders collapse and actually not make the playoffs? There's a chance that could actually happen if the Rangers get hot and the Islanders continue to slip. Yesterday, the Islanders give up a goal to the Ovechkin-less Capitals a minute and a half into the game, and that's the only goal of the game. They waste that great defensive and goalkeeping effort, and the Islanders haven't quite even locked up a playoff position. And a little while ago, it looked like maybe they'll, be on top of the division. They're going neck and neck with the Capitals, and now the Islanders are slipping, so don't take anything for granted. They still have to lock up their playoff position, and that's no longer certainty.
That's true. That's true, Jack. Anything can happen. The weird thing about hockey right now is they haven't got a start date for the playoffs yet, and they're getting near the end of the season. I know there's COVID concerns and with Canada and some games in hand for other teams. But, I mean, it's getting close, and they still haven't named the start date yet. So we'll see what happens with there. NHL, Turner signs a 7-year deal to air hockey. Turner Productions, I think that's TBS, Jack. Turner Productions has signed a 7-year deal with hockey. So that's good news for hockey.
I'm a little confused. Didn't ESPN just sign a deal to air hockey for a number of years? And now
that's TNT.
TNT as well. I got to ask Carter that when he comes on to clarify that, because I was under the impression that ESPN has the main rights, including for the Stanley Cup Finals, that they were really going to promote hockey. And now you're saying with TNT. I realize there's more than one outlet because you look at the NBA, they air on ESPN and TNT as well. But who's going to have the biggest impact games that come to Stanley Cup Finals? Who's really going to have the rights to that going forward? Maybe Carter could clarify that for us next time he comes on.
Maybe so. I know NFL just signed a huge deal with an app for billions of dollars or something for 10 years to carry Thursday Night Football, along with Fox, along with whoever else is covering it. So it's like a dual thing. Everybody's trying to get a little piece of something, Jack.
Matt, these apps, the Yankees were supposed to be on Prime on Amazon last night. I couldn't get the game. I tuned to it. Finally, I say the heck with it, and I watched the Met-Red Sox game, instead as an alternative. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan, but I still like the Mets.
Yeah. Sometimes you got too much stuff, and you got to go in too many places to find something. It can be a little frustrating. This day in history, Jack, we'll do that, and then you should have a little bit of news left over. We should be able to get this in, and your little bullet statements, your little tidbits, your little jabs that you like to throw out there at the end of the show. So let's go to this day in sports history real quick. In 1956, Frank Robinson hits his first of 586 home runs, Jack.
I didn't even realize Frank Robinson came up that early. Frank Robinson was traded from the Cincinnati Reds when he was really in his prime of his career. But the owner, the GM, Bill DeWitt, at the time of Cincinnati, thought Frank Robinson was old at the age of 30. The mindset at that time was when you turn 30, you're starting to become past your prime. It's no longer that type of mindset. So he's traded to the Baltimore Orioles before the 1966 season. Well, a pretty good pitcher, Milt Pappas, okay? A one-on-one deal. Robinson goes on to win the Triple Crown for the Baltimore Orioles and leads them to a World Series championship and becomes a Baltimore Oriole legend. And he was a big part of the Oriole team from 1969 through 1971. This is food for thought, Mac. Imagine the Cincinnati Reds never traded Frank Robinson. He would have been a part of that big red machine.
Right.
Okay, with Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, we played for Joe Morgan, Tony Perez. Imagine adding Frank Robinson to that team in the early years. And had they had Frank Robinson, Frank Robinson, too, was a member of the Oriole team that, beat the Reds in 1970 in the World Series. But imagine they had Frank Robinson, the Reds, instead of the Orioles during that time. So that would turn out to be one of the worst baseball deals a team ever made, the Reds trading Frank Robinson to the Baltimore Orioles.
Great info on that, Jack. 1967, Muhammad Ali refuses induction into the Army and is stripped of his boxing title, Jack.
Well, I always thought it was unfair, whether you agreed with Muhammad Ali's decision or not. And keep in mind, that was a different time, and revisionist thinking is difficult. A lot of people are outraged that Ali refused induction into the military. And as a result, they stripped him of the title. They wouldn't allow him to box. They wouldn't allow him to earn a living while his case was on appeal. They wouldn't even allow him to go to Canada to fight George Chuvalo because they were scared he wouldn't come back. Ali would have come back for sure. And, it's totally unfair not to allow a guy to earn a living while his, case was pending and on appeal.
Yeah, I got a comment here from Chrissy Regling. I'm not going to put it up because I don't want people sending her mail, but yeah, we'll definitely check into that for you, Chrissy. I'd be happy to check that out for you. So just to let you know, I got your comment. I'm just not going to put it up on the board so that other people see your Gmail address. So yeah, I got your message, and we'll definitely look into that and definitely help out if we can. Fernando Valenzuela in 1985 has a record 41 scoreless. I guess that's innings, Jack, to start the season.
Fernando Valenzuela took Major League Baseball by storm when he came up. When he pitched for the Dodgers, he was a rock star. He was a great pitcher for them, too, in those early years. Absolute rock star. Arguably, there hasn't been a pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball who came up and took a sport by storm, had such charisma. Vida Blue compared to him when he came up. But Fernando Valenzuela, being Latin, added to it. And Mark Fidrich was kind of funny the way he talked to the ball, and he was very effective when he came up. But those three, Fernando Valenzuela, Vida Blue, and Mark Fidrich, were absolute box office. But Fernando Valenzuela pitching for the Dodgers added an extra layer to it as well. Great pitch on the way up. Not quite a Hall of Famer, not over the course of his whole career, but in the early years when he pitched, he certainly was great. And he filled ballparks, too. People came out specifically to see him. He was the Dodgers equivalent of, let's say, Dwight Gooden when Dwight Gooden first came up, but actually even a little more charismatic than Gooden.
Yeah, he was, Jack. I remember the big buzz when he first came up. My last subject here is tennis. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of tennis, not anymore anyway, but in 2003, Andre Agassi becomes the oldest top-ranked male in tennis history. I think he was 33, Jack.
I'm a little surprised. I don't know that stat. 33 doesn't seem that old to be, necessarily, because Roger Federer took it into the late 30s with that age. Djokic, Nadal, they're showing what you can do when you're getting up there to around the mid-30s. But Andre Agassi, not one of the greatest American players of all time, even though he won a number of, major opens, and he was obviously a great player. But, he was always that little step behind Pete Sampras. He could never really beat Pete Sampras when Sampras was at his best. When we rate Agassi, I would rate him a tiny bit behind, John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and those guys. But he was so charismatic. For charisma, they didn't come any, bigger than Andre Agassi. I mean, he meant a lot to the image of tennis, and people would tune in to see him play specifically, and that certainly helped the sport.
I agree, Jack. We got about 3 minutes left, Jack. That's it for this day in sports history. I know you got some bullets out there that you want to shoot at me. Well, you got to turn on your mic, Jack, and the consummate professionals we are. I know.
Just small little things like Floyd Mayweather is actually fighting Logan Paul June 5th in Miami. If you call it a fight, it's an exhibition. It's pathetic. Listen, if Mayweather can make money, and that's a pay-per-view Showtime event, right. If people are, I don't want to say dumb enough to pay for it, if people want to pay for it, if it's an evening of entertainment, let them pay their money. I mean, I'm not going to pay for it. I'm a boxing guy. To me, that's not a boxing match. I guess it's entertainment. To put it in perspective, Logan Paul, a YouTube guy's had one fight that he lost, and he's going to be boxing Mayweather. Mayweather isn't going to come back to the ring for real because he has an unbeaten record and he doesn't want to jeopardize it. So this match with Logan Paul is going to be billed as an exhibition. And even if the unthinkable happens and Mayweather should lose, which is obviously an amazing long shot, it wouldn't go on Mayweather's record actually as a loss, even though it would tarnish him. And Mayweather, he has this need to keep in the news, and people are going to pay. And listen, if he could pick up an extra 30, 40, 50 million, as crazy as it is, more power to him. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua were waiting for that fight to get signed. Supposedly, there's 150 million site fee in Saudi Arabia, which the guys were going to split, but nothing has been delivered. Nothing's been signed, and now Bob Arum's getting mad at Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, because Bob Arum, along with Frank Warren, they represent Fury. They claim they might move on from that fight pretty soon, and that Tyson Fury might fight Deontay Wilder instead. So stay tuned. Something should be announced in a couple of weeks there, one way or the other.
There you go, Jack. Yeah, I agree. I don't like the exhibitions. I mean, to pay for them, especially if they were free on TV, I might watch them just out of curiosity. But to watch something and pay a lot of money for that kind of fighting, I wouldn't do. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in today. I had a great show. I had great guests. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same channel. We should have Iceman John Scully and Carter B on tomorrow. Great guests, know a lot about sports, and we'll be coming back at you 8 to 10 a.m. And don't forget the huge draft show, either on Northeast Streaming Sports on the Facebook page, YouTube channel. It'll also be on Max Sports Facebook page, probably a couple other sites. We'll be going from 6 at night all the way through the first round. A lot of guests, a lot of coverage. Please join us, and we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Again,